But one thing that strikes me is, I based on random messages, etc. I have some sense of when you go to bed and when you get up, and we have a sense of what your kind of daily life looks like. And it is incredibly disciplined, and a huge amount of that time is devoted to education. There are other elements, though. I mean, I've been out with you on a heavy night, and I know there was no way in hell I was getting out of bed early in the morning, but you're still in the gym at 6 a.m. You're still doing your Chinese language lessons, etc., no matter how shady you might be feeling. But there's an incredible drive in you when it comes to education. And I think if there was one subject that could cause people to mistake you for an altruist, it would be on the subject of education, because you are really passionate about it, not just for your own education, but for people at large. What is it about education? What is it that makes it so important for you and for it to spread?
For society, democratic society especially, to actually work, we need people to be involved and informed. And this is one of the things we're not teaching properly anymore. I have made this argument a number of times, but there are two aspects of going to uni and other things. There's education and there's training. And these used to be separate. They're now getting mixed up. And training is when you do your law degree. There's one of the few areas where you still do 2 degrees is law. So you do like your BA or a BSc, and then you do your Bachelor of Law. And they generally expect you to have education first. Not always the case. You can do some rather iffy degrees these days and still call it education. But it's about how to think and being part of society and the world. So I make this point, Bohr's, behind quantum theory, etc., was also a philosopher. People don't actually understand that one, but he wrote and did philosophy of science, philosophy of logic. One of the philosophy of the Western world is sort of written by a mathematician who's also a philosopher. We have many people in history who are scientists and mathematicians and philosophers. And if we want to get past this whole postmodern deconstructionist, anti-life, nihilistic view of the world, then we have to have people who are involved and trained and educated. And you can say that it's not really anything other than selfish in a way. I want a world that is better. I want to live in a world that is better. And if I want to be in a world that is better, then that means people who are engaged in society, who are active, who know what they're voting for, who understand the issues and can debate them. So one of the things we should be doing is educating people not with agendas. People should be taught a variety of topics, even when they're coders and things like that. They should be taught some philosophy, some art, some science. But they should learn how to debate, how to actually express an opinion, why to have an opinion, and to learn, not just everyone says. And you should be able to openly debate this the way that society has built over the many, many decades, many centuries since the start of the Enlightenment. Why is the individual important? We need to be able to express that. And it's one thing to write code or math, but if you can't actually express this to people and you can't have that debate or argument, then you're not really being effective.
Everything you describe here seems to go to the concept of making the world, generally a better place to live in, if I can boil it down to really simplistic terms. Why not say screw the world? I mean, you got enough money. You could go off into your own bubble. You could probably, have whatever kind of a life that you want and whatever you need brought into your bubble. Why bother with trying to improve the world that you live in?
What is the purpose? I mean, at the end of the day, the ultimate evil, in my opinion, is nihilism, emptiness, and that's what you're describing. So if we want to be a part of things, we need to understand that we have this world of different people. I mean, I have Asperger's, and it's difficult for me over the years to really get to understand other people's minds. In part, I do that by studying. So, and I try and read and learn and see what's happened, which has taken me through a lot of history as well, but and some psychology and some other topics. But what is the purpose of life if that's all you want? Think about it. Why do anything in the first place if that's all you want? Why not just be a warlord and cause problems? Or, I mean, why not just commit sort of seppuku and disappear now if it's empty? I like to believe that there's some reason more than emptiness that the universe exists, that it's not just a infinite series of bubbles and we're going to do this talk again and again forever. And there is much more to everything out there. I mean, people don't look around. There's some remarkable architecture. There's art. There's beauty in nature. There's
So part of what you want then is interacting with the world.
Correct. Everyone wants to be interacting with the world. How they do it is a different question. But we should be looking at a world where we should imagine ourselves in different positions and what happens in different places and all the rest. And if we want to be honest with ourselves, which I think truth is incredibly important, then we can't just sit there in a sort of isolated little thought bubble and decide this is all going to work really well for me. I mean, we don't act in isolation. No one does. We can't. Not as people, not as countries. We're connected. So
would you say that there's an implied moral obligation upon people to try to make the world or the part that they can influence a better place?
I think so. I mean, I think all of us want something more from the world, and the only way that we can do that is to give back. It's going back to Adam Smith, and not just his work on Wealth of Nations, but moral sentiments. If we want to actually be part of a world that's going to be effective, then we have to actually engage with that world, change it, alter it, and sort of understand why it is the way it is. And this is rather problematic at the moment. So we have a world in this woke re-envisioning of society where we're trying to rewrite history, and that's wrong. I mean, when you think about it, if you don't understand history, then it's not even that we're doomed to repeat it, as Fukuyama and others said. It's more that we're going to make it worse. We are in the best part of human history ever. There's never been a golden age like this. There's never been so much. And contrary to what people think, we're not running out of resources. There's only one resource that gets us everything we ever need, and that's energy. And we have plenty of sources if we think about it. The entire economy comes down to energy. We want more iron, energy. Want more gold, energy. Want more food, energy. I mean, right now we could build underground bunkers and populate them with all the resources and feed 1 billion times the population of Earth without anyone noticing an ecological impact at all, with one thing, energy. So, and how do we do that? Well, that's knowledge and innovation. So if we want that sort of growth, which will solve poverty, which will solve everything, which will make people's lives better, then we need people who are going to think through problems, not sit there complaining about problems, but solving them. And that means education.
So I can try and frame what I think that you just said. You are driven to work to improve the world because it improves your experience of interacting with that world. It's almost like you're incentivized to do it. You're not doing it through any notion of altruism. You're doing it because it improves your life. And so you're expending
my family. I mean, the altruistic bit that everyone has is
the
people
family,
they care about. Yeah.
And so you're expending your energy and your work to write your little part of the chronicle of human history. It almost sounds like Bitcoin, doesn't it?
Yes. So I guess the thing to think about is we can all do something. It doesn't need to be great. It doesn't need to be magnificent. It doesn't need to be huge. But a little change. Everyone can do a little change. And just one little thing that we can do that doesn't seem much can go a long way. I knew a guy who was a postmaster in Australia for years when I was with the church, and he had a wacky hobby that I think his wife thought he was insane, which was growing orchids. And for like 40 years, he put lots of money into this, and everyone just thought he was a little bit crazy. And these days, he's actually, a lot of them are all around the world now with the new techniques in biology and being able to propagate them much easier. He's got all these different varieties that he's grown through the decades that are now sold in supermarkets and things all over the world. And people can sit there and go, but that's crass sort of consumerism. But is it really? It's making people's lives better. I mean, think about it. Having more food, that's crass consumerism. Not starving to death. Having the average age of your children being more than 5 years old before they die, that's consumerism. So,
I often think when people complain about all the various things that are kind of wrong with the world, that it's a matter of perspective and it's a matter of timescale. I mean, for all the things that one might point out that are wrong today, a lot of people could compare their life now to what their life would have been like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and it's vastly improved. But time, I guess, perspective on time has a habit of colouring people's perspective on events. So,
well, I think it's more than that. I think people don't even realise. One of MA in history that I've been doing, it's covering sort of a lot of micro histories, not from the large scale history that most people see, wars and whatever else, but actually looking at rural sort of England, places like Surrey, where I live, and Coventry and other areas. And 120 years ago, it's remarkable how different things were. A lot of sort of these areas saw their first steam engine only around 120 years ago. They were still effectively in poverty, earning minimal wages, with most people being servants or labourers and living in crude huts with no flooring and things like this. And we're only talking about 120 years ago in England, and this was massively common. And these people had better lives than most of the ones in London that smelt like a sewer. I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like around, say, 1860 in London, because supposedly that's when it smelt better. Before that, when they had the sewers put in, the descriptions are